Well, Katrina, look, there's no doubt that Sarah Palin, when it comes to certain areas in the country, and I think Iowa is one of them, you look at the success of a Joni Ernst. I remember when Joni Ernst initially announced her campaign, and then those commercials with the, castration, I guess the best way to call it. There may be a cowboy technical term for it, but she hit the map, and she was a laughing stock initially, but then it was the Sarah Palins who parachuted in there, and she became the senator.
Well, she did, and Sarah Palin is known for doing just that. But if I could, I'd like to discuss the quote-unquote conservative situation here.
Please do.
I mean, we're talking about years ago that beliefs or positions that Mr. Trump may have taken, all of which he hasn't tried to hide anything. He hasn't misreported one single thing that he supported in the past, and he's already talked about where he stands today, and that's what's important to voters. We've given passes to people like Mitt Romney, for example, that held very liberal positions in the past when he ran for president, and the reason why some people don't quote-unquote pander to subsidies is because when you're backed by big oil taking big oil money, you can't.
Here's what I'm finding, Charles. The label conservative, true conservative, isn't as important to people across this country, based upon callers to my show, as the label of leader, fighter, and winner. Those labels, I think, those labels are the ones that are propelling candidates like Trump, Rubio, and Cruz. They're not looking at conservative versus true conservative.
But who's looking for those leaders and those fighters? Isn't it the sort of the former majority or the still majority that's beginning to dwindle? Isn't it the people who kind of look back to the 1950s, Father Knows Best, white picket fence, America undoubtedly the #1 power in the world. We just vanquished Germany. When we were on top, people who can still think about that, remember that, they feel that slipping away.
Yes.
And they think this is their last chance maybe at reclaiming that?
That group, along with those people that are saying to themselves, I want to be proud of this country again. They're tired of a president who has been apologizing for 7 years about the greatness of America. That's what they're looking. And you've got not only the group that you described, but you've got the independents and some conservatives who are ready to have somebody in the White House with those labels.
Sheriff Clarke?
Charles, I'm not buying that a conservative that gets behind Donald Trump is an apostate. I think that there's a certain amount of people in the GOP that are tired of the way things have been. They're tired that not much changed since the 2014 midterm elections, in which they gave full control of the Congress to the GOP, and they still continued to fund President Obama's agenda when they told us that they would stop it. I think that her endorsement of Donald Trump carries more weight than, say, Lindsey Graham's endorsement of Jeb Bush. But again, I'm still going to I'm still going to say this. It's a lot of window dressing and inside baseball at this point.
David McIntosh, I'm going to go to you. David McIntosh, what do you think that the whole thing has been turned, the whole apple cart, the whole script, the whole way of business as usual in the GOP, no matter what the outcome is of this election, that Donald Trump has completely turned it on its ear with respect to not listening to the little people, bowing to super PACs, bowing perhaps to organizations like yours, and big money and all these other things that people are rejecting as part of the status quo that have added to the erosion of the greatness of this country.
I think what you're seeing is both Trump and Cruz say they won't be Washington. The ironic thing is that Donald Trump is now taking Mitch McConnell's side, saying that Ted Cruz was too mean to him. And that means when he gets to Washington, he'll be right up there with the insiders. That's been our premise about him, is he'll say anything to get elected, and then if he gets back here, he'll just be part of the establishment. That's his record. He was, when he was in New York, part of the New York establishment. He's running as an outsider now. But he says, oh, Cruz was too mean to McConnell. You can't be against Washington and say you need to take care of Mitch McConnell.
Katrina, what do you think about that?
That's not exactly what Donald Trump says, and he doesn't have a record. He's never cast a vote. He has watched the news cycle and been told certain things and taken a verbal opinion on something. He hasn't cast or even put out a policy, for that matter, Dave. But more importantly, yes, he is talking about what he has heard with Senator Cruz. It's no secret. Senator Cruz is not well liked, and it's not just by establishment people, it's other colleagues and people around him as well. And that's one of the reasons why Bristol Palin made her tweet today, because a lot of people have had bad experiences with the senator, not just Mitch McConnell.
Well, what would you say, though, Katrina, about the notion that Senator Cruz went there and he just went in there like a wrecking ball, Isn't that what we want someone to do? Isn't that what you ultimately want? I mean, you used to be very close with Ted Cruz.
That's right.
Isn't that the person that you embraced at one point to go into D.C. and to be a wrecking ball and to upset all these guys who just rubber stamp everything? Isn't that what people wanted? If that made them unlikable, it's too bad, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The problem with that is, Charles, is when you go to Washington to shake things up, ultimately to run for president instead of fight for the constituents, and I can point to TPA, for example, where the senator joined Paul Ryan, and every single Senate district in the state of Texas had to come out against that before he would change his position. You see that when the presidential campaign started, he began to shift. Another example is just a year ago on Senator Cruz's own YouTube page, where he's supporting bringing in the Syrian refugees, which is something Donald Trump has never been in support of. So there are a lot of people that have seen these sudden shifts, same shifts that Marco Rubio pointed out at the last debate, that is making people take a step back and look at the situation.